Hey, so I am going to show you guys how to make a t-shirt quilt. This is going to come out in a couple different videos, just because that's how long it takes to do this. But I'm going to take you from start to finish to make a quilt out of t-shirts, jerseys, etc., whatever you happen to have used for your quilt. The first step that I do, and this is normally with my client, is I measure out the shirts. I measure them in 6 inches. Okay, and I'm gonna use finished sizes for everything. Keep in mind, whenever I say something, you have to add the 1/2 inch for the, what's the word I want? For the seam. Thank you, seam allowance. So I'm gonna use finished measurements when I talk, just to make it a little easier for me, instead of having to say half, 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 half every time. So 6 inch, 12 inch, or 15 inch. And I wish I got some sort of kickback from this ruler, because I highly recommend it. You know, maybe I'll put some affiliate links in the bottom for where to get rulers for t-shirt quilts. Yes, this one does have a 12-inch marking on it. I prefer to just cut directly around a square rather than having to like move it. So if I'm doing adult shirts, I do 6, 12, or 15. Sometimes I'll do a 15 by 12 or 12 by 15, or a 6 by 12, 12 by 6, you know, something like that. But I try to keep it in these 3 measurements. Those 3 are all parts of each other, so I can puzzle them together better. If I am doing kids shirts or baby shirt or baby clothes or something like that, normally I will do a 5 and a 10. Just kind of depends on what I'm working on. I am working on an adult shirt pile for this quilt, so I'm going to be using my 3, 6, and 15. I'm sorry, no, take that back, scratch that. 6, 12, and 15. Those are the 3 rollers I'm going to use. Now, when I go through with my client, I will talk to them and be like, all right, awesome. This shirt has writing on the front and the back. Do you want to use both sides or just one side? And in this case, she said both sides. I know that because if she only wants me to use one side, I put a little clip. I don't know if there are any one sides on here actually. But I'll put a little safety pin on the side that she wants. But it looks like all of these are double-sided. Yes, they are. Alrighty. That makes my job so much easier. Well, it actually makes it really hard, but it makes it easier for me to remember, because I normally have piles of several quilts or several piles of t-shirts at a time, because these are very popular quilts to make. Alright, I'm gonna move the camera so you can see my screen, my cutting mat here, and we will do the first cut. Alright, I hope that worked. So because we are doing both the front and the back, see, this is the back, I'm gonna measure and be like, okay, that's definitely 15 long. This is my 12, these little blobbles here. So this is a 12 by 15 shirt. Now I will try to do them as small as possible, and it says on my sheet, because I went through and I measured these with her, it says I should have 4 12 by 15s. I try to do it as small as I can get away with, because I charge by the shirt. So the more shirt I use, the more it's going to end up costing them. So if I can get away with a 12 by 15 instead of a 15 by 15, I will do that. And then the front, let's see what the front is. Oh, that's a nice pretty pattern. Let's see, shirt. Let's see, is that a 12 by 12? Yes. No, that is going to be a 15 by 12 again. So when you're measuring the shirts, my 12 by 12 ruler has this green edge around it. This clear at the end is the seam allowance, which I love when doing shirt quilts, because I can see, all right, if I have that right on the seam allowance, I'm missing shirt up here. So that means this one needs to be a 12 by 15 as well, both sides. Now, I will look at that and go, okay, Now, because we're using both sides of this shirt, and I know it's going to be 12 inches wide, I can safely cut off arms, or at least one arm, and down the side, so I can open up the shirt, and then obviously at the collar and shoulder too. And I try to get this, it's just a rough cut, guys, don't worry about it too much. I know I got plenty of space to work with. Yeah, and then we gotta do it at the collar. And I highly recommend cutting at seams whenever possible to give you the most fabric. There we go. So, this is my back. No, this is the front of the shirt. I've got it sitting on my cutting mat, so I know I'm not gonna like do anything crazy. I don't want it stretched, but I want it laying nicely. This is a 12 by 15, so I know it needs to be at least this wide, and I don't want to use this collar if possible, so I'm going to knock it down to about here, and then I'm going to do a rough cut above here all the way across. All the way across, wow. And you can use your rotary cutter for this, it's just kind of dependent on you, but you do want to give yourself some space around each side. And I'll explain in a moment why I do that. I like to give myself space because if you can see I'm not lining this up, I'm not making sure this is centered. This is what it is at this point. Now I know it needs to be 12 inches wide, so I'm going to go back to my 12-inch ruler now that I've got the right length. And I'm going to give myself some space on either side, but I don't want so much space that I'm wasting interfacing. So this is going to go up here because the next step will be adding interfacing to it. Oh wow, my scissors do not want to do that, guys. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. Now, because it does fit on my board nicely, look at that, isn't that nice? And then I make up a little pile of shirts. There's tons of projects you can do with shirt scraps that just, you can put them in a pile, you can use them for whatever you want, or just throw them away. Some clients like me to use the front, but keep the back. That's another quilt I'm doing. So I will cut them out nicely for her to be able to use in another quilt later on. So this is now a 12 by 15. I will take that and put it in my 12 by 15 pile. And then I will take the back and I will do pretty much the same thing. I'm gonna get my, and this is just because it's easier for me to get the top and bottom first. I'm gonna make sure there's some space here, there's some space here, and I'm gonna give it, don't do that. Don't ever cut across your hand, guys. Give myself some more space up there. Why? Because I like having space around what I'm working on. All right, and then we can go along the bottom. Again, I'm gonna give myself some extra inch or so. Look at that. Then I'm going to take my 12-inch because I want it 12 inches wide to save the client. Some moolah. And again, it's not centered. That's why I'm overcutting. After I put the interfacing on, ooh, that's a lot of extra. After I put the interfacing on, I will then center and spend some more time making sure it's perfect. But for now, this is more than 15 by 12. So I know I am good for the next step. I'm going to now go through the rest of my shirts in this beautiful pile of shirts and do the same thing. Bam! Look at that. These are all her shirts. So I'm going to go through and do that. I think all of these shirts are double-sided and we're using both sides. So I can't just willy-nilly start slicing stuff up. I need to do the sides, open it up, and do one side at a time. But I hope this installment number 1 of, honestly, I have no idea how many installments this is going to take. But this is installment 1. The rough cut is what I call this. So you're figuring out how many shirts you got, you're doing rough cuts bigger than what you need, and then I will show interfacing on the next video. Sound good? All right, I'll see you guys later.